why are we in this situation and what are we supposed to do, I want to read some of the ayat of the Quran. What does the Quran say? What does Allah say about such a situation? And there are parallels with previous nations, namely Bani Israel. So Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 246. Have you not considered the assembly of the children of Israel after the time of Moses, when they said to a prophet of theirs, send to us a king and we will fight in the way of Allah? So Bani Israel is telling one of their prophets, send to us a king and we will fight in the way of Allah. So they want leadership. We are not going to be able to fight. We're not going to be able to take ourselves out of this situation without a leader. We need a king. So the prophet said to them, the prophet that was sent to Bani Israel said, would you perhaps refrain from fighting if battle was prescribed for you? So even if there's a battle that's prescribed, you're prescribed to fight. And you are avoiding that. And your excuse is that you don't have a leader. So that's not going to change when you have a leader. When you have a leader, that kind of hesitation to fight, that's not going to go away. They said, and why should we not fight in the cause of Allah when we have been driven out from our homes and from our children? So they're saying, oh, of course we're going to fight. It's in our interests. Why wouldn't we? So that's an interesting response. Like, why wouldn't we? We've been driven out of our homes and we've lost our children. So of course we're going to fight. That's like a dunyawi perspective. Instead of fight for the cause of Allah, fight for the cause of Iman. Like that's the reason that you should fight. But the way that they are understanding is like, well, why wouldn't we? We have a dunya reason to fight. So why wouldn't we? And the irony is that still that's not enough of a reason. Still they're too cowardly. Still they are going to run away from the conflict. But when battle was prescribed for them, they turned away except for a few of them, and Allah is knowing of the wrongdoers. So there's something wrong internally. There's a spiritual problem. It doesn't matter if you have a leader. It doesn't matter if you have resources. It doesn't matter if you have all of the reason in the world to fight back, because you've lost everything. You've lost your home. You've lost your children. You've lost any kind of dunya thing, and you have all the dunyawi incentive to fight back. It doesn't matter if there's something wrong internally. So then look at what the next verse says. And their prophet said to them, indeed, Allah has sent to you Talut. Talut, translated as Saul, as a king. They said, how can he have kingship over us while we are more worthy of kingship than him, and he has not been given any measure of wealth? So Allah is sending them a king, sending them a leader. And what is the first thing that they do? They start questioning this leader. We're more worthy to be the king than this guy, than Talut. Why has he been given kingship over us? We're more worthy, and he hasn't been given wealth. He's not rich. He's not rich, so how can he be the leader of us? So just look at the lack of shukr, the lack of contentment. Even when Allah is giving them the best king, a king sent from Allah, and they have a prophet, a Nabi is telling them that here is the king from Allah that you are wanting. You're saying that this is what you need. This was the excuse that you gave. Here he is. And now you're rejecting him. You're bringing up more excuses. Oh, he's not worthy. He's not wealthy. This is the mindset. So the prophet that was sent to them said, indeed, Allah has chosen him over you and has increased him abundantly in knowledge and stature. And Allah gives his sovereignty to whom he wills, and Allah is all encompassing in favor and knowing. So it's interesting, this response from the prophet that was sent to them. Allah has chosen him over you, and he's increased him abundantly in knowledge and stature. And the word in Arabic for stature is jism. Jism means like body, physique. So that's interesting. Like, why is that relevant? Knowledge we can kind of understand. Like, someone has greater knowledge, so they're more worthy in that sense. But the verse, the ayah, doesn't just say knowledge. It also includes stature. Why? And does this just mean like he's just bigger physically? Okay, why is that important? Like, whoever's the biggest and strongest has to be the leader? Is that the model of leadership that is being suggested in this ayah? Or does it mean, and Allahu A'lam, Allah knows best, that the stature here means strength? That he is knowledgeable, but he pairs the knowledge with strength, with resolve, with the ability to withstand pressure, to withstand wrong influences. This is very critical. And in English, we have an expression, a pushover, someone who's a pushover. Someone who is a pushover, like what that means, it's a metaphorical expression. It means someone who is easily convinced, like someone who easily concedes, gives up. Whatever position he has on a topic, he will give it up and he will concede and he will compromise very easily. Just put a little bit of pressure, a little bit of a push, and he will topple over. He will concede, he will compromise, he will retreat. he will surrender. That's a pushover. It's a metaphor, but the idea is that someone who is physically strong is not going to be easily pushed over. You can put pressure on him, even a lot of pressure, but he's going to hold firm. He's going to be solid. He's not going to easily surrender. So this is two qualities that he had as a leader: knowledge and stature. Unfortunately, we have many knowledgeable people in our ummah today. They're extremely knowledgeable, but they have no stature, whether that is like a physical stature, purely in physical terms, but also in metaphysical terms. They have no stature. They're easily pushed over by what is popular. What is the popular opinion? What is the cultural imperative based off of a culture that has been corrupted by Western influence and degeneracy? They get easily swayed by, a kind of deference to women. Like, you have all of these simps, like you have all of these simp imams, simp scholars. They have knowledge, but they use that knowledge for compromise. How can Muslims better compromise? How can Muslims better assimilate? How can Muslims be more peaceful? We need to be peaceful, guys. That's our main problem, is we're not peaceful enough. Meanwhile, the boot of the disbelievers are on our necks, choking us out, killing us, and we're talking about peace? We're talking about peace? How about we talk about justice? How about we talk about what needs to happen to stop a genocide of Muslims? Like, isn't that a more pressing topic as opposed to peace? Like, yeah, we want peace, but the peace that the powers of the world are working towards is a peace through elimination of Muslims, genocide of Muslims. Like, so why would Muslims be having this conversation? So that's the kind of knowledge without stature, knowledge divorced from stature, from strength, from resolve, from a willingness to be combative if necessary, a willingness to be confrontational if necessary, to disagree, to fight when necessary. That's what stature means. And this is why that's the kind of leadership that Talut had, that Allah gave him, and that's what made him suitable as a leader. But of course, as we know from the remaining story of Talut in Surah Al-Baqarah, the Bani Israel continue to disobey him, continue to show a lack of loyalty to him, a lack of willingness to follow him. They continue to bicker and to argue, to disobey. Those are the two horns of our dilemma. Our situation is not only a lack of leadership, but a lack of followership as well. Unfortunately, we have so many divisions, partly because Muslims are not willing to follow. And this is itself a big problem. And this is why I want to contrast with Jews. Okay, when you look at Jews, they have many divisions amongst themselves. They have many disagreements amongst themselves. They fight very harshly, Jew versus Jew. You see that within the Jewish community globally. But they draw the line. They draw the line at a certain point. We're not going to let our differences go beyond a certain line. And that's when our interests as a community are threatened. When our interests are threatened, then that's when we need to be united. That's when we need to put the disagreements to the side to defend ourselves from an outside force. This is what you find from the Jewish community. Muslims, unfortunately, many Muslims, they don't have that sense. They don't have that kind of practical thinking. And we see that. We saw that. We've been seeing that from the beginning of October 7th. We saw this in June with the Israeli attack on Iran, where ignorant Muslims, either they're ignorant or they have some kind of corruption in their hearts, or they're literally munafiqeen that are working for Unit 8200, or they're working for Israel. They don't recognize that we're in an existential situation. We are being genocided, a genocide that's not going to just stop with Gaza. It's going to expand throughout the Middle East and then the entire world. Our enemies want to erase Islam off the face of the earth. No recognition of that existential threat, that existential reality. We have to continue fighting and bickering. We have to continue to takfir. We have to continue to argue about these finer points of aqidah. And this is what the Wahhabis did. This is what sectarians did. And they're still doing. If you care about the ummah, if you care about Muslim lives, if you care about the Muslims of Syria or Jordan or Lebanon or Saudi Arabia or Qatar or wherever, if you truly care about the Muslim ummah and the Muslim lives, all these millions of Muslims who live in these areas, you should be willing to understand what is the major threat to their lives. If you don't know, Israel has this greater plan for the region and they're executing it step by step in a very clear and predictable way. If you don't know that, then let us educate you on that. So I'm very clear that when it comes to Shia, they are deviant. They're a deviant sect. They have these wrong beliefs and we critique these beliefs and we don't accept them. But they're Muslims and their lives, we have to protect their lives. This is what Allah commands us to do. And we have to unite with them against a bigger threat. This is what Allah commands us to do in the Quran. This is what the Sunnah is. And so if you are not going to do that, then you're in violation of the Quran. You're disobeying Allah in a very deliberate way. And we have to call you out for that. We have to call you out and we have to point out that this is the behavior of the Khawarij. This is the behavior of the Munafiqeen, the hypocrites in the Quran. And we won't tolerate it. This has to be our message on social media. We have to close ranks because this is a huge cancer that is an internal problem that is sabotaging us and our ability to survive. Those are the stakes. And a lot of Muslims, unfortunately, don't get it. Again, like when it comes to Jews, this is the thing that a lot of Muslims are constantly talking about. Oh, look at what the Jews are doing with the lobbying, the Israeli lobby. Oh, look at how much money they're putting, millions of dollars to buy politicians and to put congressmen and congresswomen. Like, oh, we need to follow that plan. Like, isn't that the case? Isn't that what, especially in America, especially in the UK, this is how the strategic Muslim thinkers with money, especially, this is how they think. We need to just imitate the Jews in this or that. The irony is that you didn't identify and recognize the true strength that they have is from putting aside their differences and their disagreements when they face an existential threat. Even when they don't face an existential threat, they make up an existential threat and they pretend like they're going to be genocided, and then they rally behind that and they support each other in that. Why didn't you pick up that aspect? The tribalistic aspect of their behavior. And again, I'm not saying that this is a good thing in and of itself to be tribalistic for the sake of tribalism, for the sake of dunya. That's the kind of tribalism that they demonstrate in their religion and culture. I'm not saying we imitate that. We have a higher purpose. We have more reason to be united. We have more reason to put aside differences, not erase differences, but to put aside differences, because Allah tells us to do this, to preserve the deen, to preserve the religion, to pursue the akhirah, to pursue Jannah, and to avoid the hellfire. This is what Allah commands us to do, and we're not doing it. They're just pursuing their own self-benefit in the dunya because they don't even believe, many of them, in the akhirah. 50% of their rabbis supposedly don't even believe in God. They don't believe in God, and they're still behaving in this way. So how about us? We believe in God. We believe in God, and we're not able to work together. And this is what they said. This is what the Wahhabis said. The Palestinians, they are grave worshippers. They're grave worshippers because they don't accept everything that our Sheikh said, Ibn Abdul Wahhab said, and they ally with Rafidi, Iran. So they're Rafidi lovers. They're Rafidi themselves, so we can't support the Palestinians. That's what the Wahhabis initially said. And then when they got curb stomped on social media, they kind of hid. They did taqiyya of their actual views. And then they pretended like they support Palestine. They put a couple of tweets out. Oh, Netanyahu is bad. Allah curse Netanyahu, just to get Muslims off the scent that actually Wahhabis are, basically a Zionist front. So we have a problem of leadership. We have a problem of followership. Look at what we find in verse 32-24, Surah As-Sajdah, the 24th verse. And we made from among them leaders, guiding by our command when they were patient and when they were certain of our signs. So if we want leaders, we want strong leaders who have power, who can change our situation. Well, we have to change what is in ourselves. And here is the prescription that Allah gives. We have to have patience, sabr, patient perseverance. When we are faced with all of these pressures, all of these challenges, literal genocide is happening. We have to be patient. We can't lose hope in Allah. We can't start diverging. We can't start changing the religion and compromising our religion. That's sabr, and there has to be certainty in the signs, in the ayat of Allah. We have to have certainty. Unfortunately, we see the opposite in the ummah. We see the opposite in compromising parts of the deen that can never be compromised. How much has there been a compromise to secularism? How much of a compromise has there been to liberalism, to feminism, to democracy, democratic capitalism? How much of a compromise have we seen in the ummah for the past 250 years? And you have Muslims who are advocating changing the sharia, changing the law, updating it, revising it, and bringing all kinds of excuses for this. This is reformism. This is secular reformism. And it's being taught in the madaris, in the Islamic universities. All of these compromises that are being taught. Why? What's causing that? What's causing people to want to compromise, to reform Islam? It's because of lack of certainty in the signs of Allah, lack of certainty in the promise of Allah. We just don't have the same certainty that the Sahaba had, that if you follow Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you will succeed. You will be granted tawfiq in this life and the next. Where's the certainty? Now we have doubts. Like, are we really going to be successful if we don't adopt, a Western model of marriage, a Western model of divorce, if we don't adopt a Western model of schooling our children, if we don't adopt a Western model of organizing our families, of organizing our masajid, of organizing our communities, organizing our nations, our governments? Will we really be successful? No more certainty, no more confidence, no more patience, no more sabr, no more perseverance. So how are we going to get leaders? How is Allah going to bring us leaders? Leadership is something that Allah grants. It's one of the benefits that Allah, one of the blessings that Allah brings to people when they deserve that leadership. So everyone who is waiting for the Mahdi, Imam Mahdi, to come, like, oh, well, we're suffering, we're being subjugated, we're being genocided, Imam Mahdi will come and solve all these problems. What? Why? This is the wrong conception that you have. You have to change yourself. You can't be in the same state. You can't be in the same lowly state of compromise and lack of certainty, reform, liberalizing, feminizing, secularizing. Allah's not going to bring an imam for you to take you out of the humiliation and the subjugation. That humiliation and the subjugation that we're all suffering from is because we have reformed, we have compromised, we have changed. We have gone further and further from the sunnah. That's the punishment. The punishment is to be subjugated. That's what we're suffering. It's the ummah's problem. This is what al-wahan that the Prophet ﷺ described in the hadith, where he says that all the nations will gather to eat from the ummah as if they're coming to a dinner plate. And you're going to be weak. You can't do anything about it. You can't save yourselves. You're going to be weak as the foam on the sea because you have this love of the dunya. You love the dunya, you fear death, and then you compromise. This is a lack of yaqeen. This is a lack of certainty in the promise of Allah. So, of course, there's not going to be any leaders. There's not going to be an Imam Mahdi that is going to come. Only if you have that certainty in the promise of Allah and you do your best. And we're going to fail. We're not going to always accomplish in our personal lives or even on communal level or a national level. We're not always going to be successful, but we try. We try our best. And we ask Allah for forgiveness for our shortcomings. That's very different from the situation that we have now where there's no attempt. So of course we're not going to get leaders. Like even look at the local level. Like I'm in the United States. Our leaders of the masjid, like who's running the masajid in the United States? Doctors and engineers, the wealthy. Remember the verse that we just read. The verse that we just read from Surah Al-Baqarah, the Bani Israel, they rejected Talut because they said he's not worthy and he's not wealthy. The leaders have to be wealthy. So the Muslims in the US and the UK and the West in general, they followed that model. They followed Bani Israel. Like, oh, well, our leaders are only the wealthy, not the people of knowledge and stature, physical stature and metaphysical stature. Those aren't our leaders. So even on a micro scale, we're talking about like a masjid. Some of the masajid that don't even have like 200 congregants, 200 Muslims coming in praying for Friday prayers at them, and they're still dictated by masjid politics where the most ignorant people, just purely because they have money, they're in charge. And then when there is someone knowledgeable who comes, they attack him and they want to get rid of him and they don't follow him, they don't obey him. It's the same parallel situation that we have as Bani Israel did, that we are reading about in Surah Al-Baqarah and elsewhere. They don't have yaqeen, they don't have followership, they don't have sabr, they don't have ta'ah, obedience as followers. So how do you expect the situation to get better? We have to change ourselves internally. That's advice to myself. That's advice to you. Another verse that I think is relevant. This is from Surah Al-Anfal, the 60th verse. And prepare against them whatever you're able of power and steeds of war, by which you may terrify the enemy of Allah and your enemy and others besides them, whom you do not know, but whom Allah knows. And whatever you spend in the cause of Allah will be fully repaid to you, and you will not be wronged. What's significant about this is that this is a verse about preparation. Prepare so that you will scare the opponent. They'll be terrified of you because of how much you've prepared. And right now we're in a situation where we're terrified of the Zionists. Why? They have prepared. The genocide that they're undertaking right now in Palestine, so much has gone into it, step by step by step. So much has been prepared. So many institutions have been built. So many institutions have been infiltrated. So many institutions have been controlled, whether it's in finances, whether it's in media, whether it's in the universities, whether it's in government, in Congress, Capitol Hill. They have prepared. Where is our preparation? And this is what Allah is saying. You need to prepare. And Allah is saying, what are you spending to build institutions of power? And I've been talking about this for many years. Many years I've been talking about this. I've been advocating for this. And I make this point, like when you look at the kind of money that Muslims, wealthy Muslims spend, it's on the poor, it's on the needy. That's fine, okay? A certain percentage of our wealth needs to go to the poor. It must go to the poor. That's what zakat is about. But what about sadaqah? What about general charity that Muslims can give? It's also going to the poor. It's also all going to the poor. What about preparation? What about building institutions of power, infiltrating institutions of power? Nothing is being spent on that. The evidence of that is that we don't have any kind of institutions that are willing to confront, that are willing to fight on the basis of Islam, on the basis of a Muslim identity. And the thing is that you can't have these institutions in the Muslim world, for the most part, not every country, but most of these Muslim countries are also controlled. And this should not be a surprise, like what I'm saying. So you have many Muslim institutions in the Muslim world in a lot of these countries, but they're, guess what, government controlled. And guess who those governments are subservient to? And for what reasons? For the same reasons, hubb dunya, for love of dunya, fear of death. So forget about the Muslim world. So in the West, we do have some degree of freedom to build institutions. It's a limited freedom. The US is the best place for it compared to European countries or Canada. There is more robust, quote unquote, freedom of religion in the US. What have they built with their hundreds of millions of dollars that Muslim Americans have from being doctors and engineers and businessmen and lawyers? What institutions? Oh, just another $10 million to build a big building. And it's ironic, right? Because you have American Muslims who are complaining about the Gulf and, oh, the Gulf, they have so much oil wealth and they're just building tall buildings. It's not just limited to the Gulf. In the United States, the Muslims are also building tall buildings. They're also competing. Oh, the masjid is so tall and we have a dome and we have a minaret. We're competing for big buildings in the US as well. It's the same retardation. We have it in the US amongst the most enlightened, educated Muslims. Our imams are signing agreements with the Zionists, peace agreements with the rabbis. Yeah, that's happening in the United States. Our imams are going to Auschwitz, just like Elon Musk went. Our imams go as well. They kiss the same ring. This is what Allah says in the Quran. And obey Allah and His Messenger, and do not dispute, and thus lose courage, and then your strength would depart, and be patient. Indeed, Allah is with the patient. So again, sabr, that is being mentioned, being patiently perseverant. And don't dispute. You'll lose courage. You'll lose your resolve. You'll lose your strength. So the disputations, it's disputation in the face of a larger existential threat. That's the problem. That's the problem. So who is creating as maximum disputation, maximum argumentation in our weakest time? It's the Wahhabis, the sectarians. So how much clearer can the Quran be about our law? What's the cause of our loss of strength? What's the cause of our lack of resolve, our lack of courage? The verse is specifically saying courage. You're going to lose courage. You're going to lose strength. That's exactly what we're missing. So these are the reflections that I want to share with you from the Quran. I think it's very important so that we can change our condition.